It was good, y'all. Got another vlog video for you today. And sure, it's overcast and raining, but it's alright. I'll live. I'll make the most of it. Because I feel like this topic, I definitely wanted to get into something that I felt like I haven't touched on. I mean, when I think about it, I thought about the fact that I made a mention of this in one or two of my pieces that I've written. And this topic is something that I feel should be discussed in a manner where, in terms of how it's being used, how the term is being used, and how much is being used in the realm of art and entertainment, but usually associated and synonymous with music, and to be more specific, especially nowadays, hip hop. And it's the term GOAT, the acronym for greatest of all time. Is the term GOAT being overused? Now, I'm sure there's people that would say it's not. Maybe there's a few of those people who are in between in terms of how they feel about that. But for someone like myself, I feel like it has been overused. I feel like that term has already overstayed its welcome because of how often it's being said, how often it's being used. And I understand why we tend to use it as much as we do, because it sparks conversation. Hell, it sparks debates. Because, it's a subjective thing of who we prefer to be great, who we see as great, who we see have the potential to be great. It's understandable why that is. It's not like I'm trying to be a gatekeeper for this thing or anything. I'm not saying that. Um, but usually when I think of greatest of all time, I would think that it comes down to one person in a generation that's meant to hold on to a title like that, that's meant to be given a title like that, because they were able to deliver on all fronts and to keep that momentum, that consistency going. And because a lot of time this term is usually associated, let alone synonymous, with music, more specifically hip hop, we tend to hear rappers make a mention of that too in the music. Why? Because now it's like, okay, they see themselves as that. Okay, I get that. I get it. They see themselves as that, especially for those who's been in this thing for 20 plus years. It's understandable. I get where it's coming from. I get it. I get that. And then we got those who's been in this thing for a decade or longer than a decade now. I get it. I get that. And then of course there's the competitive aspect of it, right? I mean, I usually enjoy the competitive aspect of it if it means that it brings out the good in the artist that comes through. It brings out the better that they can bring out from each other. But anytime we think of the competition, the competitive aspect of it all, we tend to think, who's better? Anytime we think of competition, we think of that. Who's better? Who has the who has the status? Who has the status, I should say? Who has the status to be in the upper echelon, the elite of people who are considered to be that, who are looked at as that, who would even call themselves that, you know? But I feel like the term of greatest of all time has been overused because it's been said so much now that it lost its meaning, or it's on the verge of that. Actually, not just on the verge of losing its meaning, but also on the verge of being overused to the point where, and do I dare go Incredibles with this? For those people in the know who have seen that movie, the first movie, Incredibles, The Incredibles, right? The fact that I'm going on using this as an analogy for what I'm talking about right now, it might sound silly. It might sound ridiculous. But here it is. I got two examples from that movie of why I'm bringing this up the way that I'm bringing it up right now. Okay? First off, earlier in the movie, there was a scene between the mom, Helen, Elastigirl, and Dash. And by the end of the conversation, before it moves on to the next scene, she says, "Everyone is special, Dash." And then Dash responded with, which is another way of saying, "No one is." And then we go to later in the movie with Syndrome, which would be the main reason to bring this movie up. I'll sell my inventions so that everyone can be superheroes, everyone can be super, and when everyone's super, no one will be. Now, take this analogy and apply that to greatest of all time, to GOAT, and how much that term has been used now. Not only do I feel like it's losing its meaning, because usually the thing of something being repeated over and over and over again, that without the meaning behind it, without the context of what it means, is pointless. I feel like this is one of those cases for that to be the reason why I'm talking about it the way that I'm talking about it right now. Because, like I said, I would usually think that when it comes down to the greatest of all time, I don't think multiple people all at once when it comes to having a title like that. Sometimes I've heard people say a goat. I've seen people comment saying a goat. That would indicate that it's more than one person that they would consider to have that title or has the potential to have it. But for the most part, I'm always hearing the goat. I'm always hearing that. When you put the in front of goat like that, I would usually think it just comes down to one person who can have that title, who could represent that term. One person in a generation that encapsulates what that term means, what it represents. That's just me. I would usually think that. You put the in front of that, I would think it just comes down to one person. But then if you say a goat, then it's implied that it's more than one person. But I just feel like, due to the fact that term has been tossed around like that so much lately, it's like, why do we do that? Why do we do that? How about we just say how these are the greats, right? These are the greats. These are some of the greatest that we have. These are some of the greatest of this generation. These are some of the greatest of the previous generations before that. You know, say it along the lines of that. To say greatest of all time and to say it as much as we do now, it lost its meaning or on the verge of losing its meaning. Therefore, on the verge of being said so much that at some point there's just going to be people who just toss the term out there for somebody just for the sake of doing it because it's the popular thing to say. It's the trending thing to say. But then if I were to think about it as to why we use the term so much that we just can't help but say that, is due to skills, presence, and longevity. It has to come down to those three essential things for why we would use the term as much as we use it: skills, presence, and longevity. That's how I look at that. As much as we say it, I would believe that it comes down to those three essential things for someone to be considered a GOAT or the GOAT, right? But at the same time, like I said, it doesn't just apply to music. It applies to all aspects of art and entertainment that whenever that term is used, I just feel like what's the point of saying that anymore? How many times are we going to say it? Why is it that we feel the need to say it? And for those of us who are on the come up, those of us who are already trying to get our foot in the door to get people to recognize us for our greatness, I feel like you should just be great. You don't need a title to say it for you. You don't need a title to say it for you. Just be great. If you already got it, if you know you got it, utilize that. You know, your presence is the only thing that should make sense in terms of showing people you are great in your own right. When you know you're great and you showcase that, people will recognize it. If you have the potential to be great, utilize your time to be able to bring that to fruition. In order to be great, you got to believe yourself to be great. If you already have that in you, or you have the potential to be, just be that. Just be that. I mean, that would be the type of thing that I would do for myself. I feel like I have greatness in myself. I have that potential to explore it, acknowledge it, embrace it. I know I'm great in my own right. It's just something that I have to recognize for myself. It's something that for all you guys out there who already feel like you're great, that you have the potential to be great, embrace that, explore that, utilize that. Just be great. You don't need a title to tell you that. And I feel like for artists out there who's already been established, again, not just in music, but in all aspects of art and entertainment, they're just great. There's no need to throw in a title for them. They just are. Especially when they know they are. Just be great. You don't need to have a title to say it. Just like I've expressed how, when it comes to awards, when it comes to trophies for getting recognition, and that you get a whole lot more people looking at you, looking for you, checking for you to see what's in store, what's next to come, right? You get all these connects, you get sponsors, you get this, that, and the other. But even with that, I would say you don't necessarily need that for people to recognize how great you are. All you got to do is be able to say that you love what you do. You're doing it for the love and the passion for the craft. Whatever it is you're doing, just learn to appreciate it. That's reward enough. You don't need a title, you don't need a trophy, you don't need awards to say that. It's all a matter of word of mouth and impact. When you get people to recognize you for that, that's all you need. I get that people still believe in people deserving a lot more than what they got. A lot more than just word of mouth and impact, that they deserve to get something for it. I know there's people out there who still believe that. It's true. I get it. I get it. I just feel like it's not necessary to have that kind of mindset that that's what you're heading towards. Just be great. Recognize your own greatness so that people can recognize your greatness. Sometimes you just got to say it without saying it. You don't need to have greatest of all time stamped on you just to say how great you are. If you are already great, be that. And then, of course, there's certain aspects where you're not going to have a perfect track record and you're going to make mistakes along the way. But as long as you continue to keep that consistency going, to acknowledge how great you are and continue to improve and get better, you're better off. So, going back to the question, is the term GOAT being overused? I believe so. I believe so. Because if everybody is the greatest of all time, it's like it's on the verge of that. It's on the verge of that, especially for those who we see as great. Anytime we throw that title on them, like if everybody we see as the greatest of all time becomes that, then no one really is. Because then who's really the greatest of all time? This is the type of thing I marinated on. This is the type of thing I would think y'all would marinate on. If everybody we see as great has the title greatest of all time, then who's really the greatest of all time? We might as well just leave it at these are the greatest of our time, the greatest of our generation, the greatest of previous generations, stuff along the lines of that. That's how I see it. These are some of the greats we got. These are some of the greats they got. These are some of the greats we should appreciate we have or had. Might as well just leave it at that. To throw in greatest of all time and to say it as much as we do now, it lost its meaning. It lost its meaning for me. At the same time, I get it because one, the competitive aspect of it, two, the conversation that comes with it, three, at times debates happen with that because without that spark, it'll just sound like a boring conversation to have, right? I get it. I get it. I get that. But of course, this is just my point of view on it. I would like to know your point of view on it. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? At least let's just have a discussion about it because, this is just how I feel on it. Let me know how you feel on it. This video is already going on long enough, but I just wanted to make sure that I give my explanation for why I'm bringing this up, the way that I'm bringing this up. Just expressing how I feel on it. It's just something that I thought about doing a vlog video on. I just never got around to doing it yet until now. So, with that being said, this is BlueFlamez Da Poet, and I'm out.